Welcome back to the Go Have Good Sex podcast, the show where faith and pleasure finally stop fighting. I'm Angela, the Christian sexpert, sex coach, truth teller, and your new favorite bedtime devotional. If you're ready to go deeper, check out my resources for couples and individuals, from my free 15-minute coaching consults to spicy but faith-friendly resources like the Marriage Playdate, to my Patreon, where I teach you all the things your church aunties never told you about. And yeah, you know I've got it covered with merch, journals, bookmarks, and everything in between at thechristiansexpert.com. So whether you're here to learn, to heal, or to spice things up with scripture and sass, I'm your girl, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into today's episode, and remember, go have good sex. Welcome back to Go Have Good Sex. I'm Angela, the Christian sexpert, and today we're tackling something that makes a lot of church aunties clutch their pearls: power in marriage. And not the bedroom kind. But it does impact the bedroom kind. For decades, complementarian teaching has told couples that God designed husbands to lead and wives to submit. But the Bible, the research, the therapy room, and the lived experience of countless couples show a different story. Marriages rooted in equality and shared power don't just survive, they thrive. In fact, in The Marriage You Want, Sheila Ray Gregoire and her husband, Dr. Keith Gregoire, did a study, I think it's over 20,000 couples, that proves this out. And we're going to get into a little bit of the research later in this episode. But I want to start the episode with a quote from the Gottmans. So this is actually Sheila quoting the Gottmans research. Statistically speaking, Gottman tells us, when a man is not willing to share power with his partner, there's an 81% chance that his marriage will self-destruct. So when I did a little pre-interview with today's guest, Matthew Lowe, he was reading me the chapter titles from his book, and one of the titles was Healthy Relationships Require Sharing Power. And I said, that's it. That's the thing that we need to talk about. So a little about Matthew. He is a licensed psychotherapist with a master's degree in mental health counseling from William James College. He has practiced psychotherapy for over 10 years at multiple substance abuse treatment centers, colleges, and private practice venues. Before his current work, he was a public school health educator and religious school philosophy teacher. He received a master's degree in theological studies from Harvard Divinity School and bachelor's degrees in philosophy at Columbia University and the Jewish Theological Seminary. The guy knows theology, y'all. So grab your pearls to clutch and buckle up, because we're about to explore how egalitarian marriages actually lead to deeper intimacy, better communication, and healthier sex lives. Matthew, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited for this conversation. I've been so excited ever since we talked, because people are just going to have a lot of big feelings, and that's okay. So with that in mind, knowing that people are going to have a lot of big feelings, I want to start with establishing your credentials, which are pretty impressive, because I don't want anyone to think that you don't understand Christian theology or, the doctrine of where we're getting these ideas. So can you tell us what makes you an expert here?
Sure. So I do want to name from the outset, right, just to really own it with some humility. I am an outsider to the religion. Not a Christian, although I've had my friends tell me that the way I approach theology is very sort of Protestant. We can get into that. But I've been a student of it. I got my master's in theology from Harvard Divinity School, where you have to declare sort of like a major religion. And because of my interest in theology and what they offered, my major religion ended up being Christianity. My focus, or at least the thing that really drew me in and spoke to me the most, was the apophatic tradition as it shows up in Catholic mysticism. So what we're talking about there is that, while scripture can tell us things about God, we need to be really careful and humble about making our own statements about God, because God is not human and our language is. So yeah, just a
I
little
have
bit.
so
I
many
mean,
thoughts.
yeah, sure. So yeah, I don't know. Like I studied it. I love it. I remember very early on, a friend introduced me, and I have like mixed feelings about C.S. Lewis. But his section in Mere Christianity about the incarnation, just like I don't, again, I'm an outsider to the religion, so I can't say I'm a believer, but the incarnation speaks to me. It is a fantastic element of theology. It changes everything to have a God be flesh. So that is it feels weird to say neat, but like it's really cool. I love it. I love what it
Yes.
does to humanity to have God have God have become flesh.
Yeah. Oh, see,
Take this for
this
you, I know.
like I was like, but we're supposed to talk. I
Uh,
recorded the intro for this already and everything.
yeah.
Um, my so I have no problem with speaking to experts who do not claim the same faith as me
Mhm.
for a lot of different reasons. But one of the big ones is because I was not always a Christian. I
Oh,
did not get saved. I did not
mm,
become an evangelical Christian
mm.
until I was 19. And
Oh,
that
oh,
I married, so my husband was raised in a Baptist adjacent
mm,
denomination, we'll call
okay.
it. And it gives me, I feel like it gives me such a unique perspective on a
Mhm.
lot of modern American evangelicalism
Yeah.
and how a lot of modern American evangelicalism is not
Mm,
actually biblical.
mm,
And
mhm,
so I think, especially if we take the opportunity,
mm,
because a lot of fundamentalist sort of churches have taught their followers to be suspect of anyone who is not a Christian or doesn't claim
yeah,
Christianity because they can't possibly know. Well, the
sure.
thing is,
Mm,
you do. Like,
mm.
you have done the research, you have the degrees,
I,
you,
I still want
and
to say though, but it's I'm still an
there's
outsider. That's still very
there
important to me, and like to have the
but
listeners
that's my
know,
point.
yeah,
But
yeah, that
that's my
I'm not,
point is
yeah,
being an outsider gives you a
mm,
unique perspective
sure,
on the good and the bad of it because
yeah,
I feel
mm,
like that's where I was going with this is
yeah,
because when we are so
hmm hmm
insular and
yeah,
isolated,
right,
we can become blind and numb to the pitfalls and the dangers. And
hmm
if we surround ourselves with this echo chamber
right,
of, well, yes,
hmm
that's, 100%, that
hmm
pastor says that 100%,
hmm hmm
and we start taking a pastor's word as what the Bible says.
hmm
Sometimes it takes someone who doesn't share that same exact viewpoint to say, y'all know that's kind of weird, right?
yeah,
I still
okay,
have moments like that with my husband where,
hmm
we've been married for over 20 years and he'll say
hmm
something about like church camp growing up or whatever. And I'll
hmm
look at him and be like, that's weird, right? Like that is not a normal, it's not biblical, it's not normal. Like
hmm
that's
hmm
objectively weird. And he has to go, what?
hmm hmm
Right? So
yeah,
I think it's really, I don't want people to dismiss this episode simply because
hmm
you are saying, well, I'm not a Christian. I think it's important to establish that
okay, I'll
people
take it.
outside of Christianity can offer perspectives
Hmm
that we are isolated
hmm
within
hmm
modern American evangelicalism from. So I
yeah,
think that's super important.
cool.
Okay. So with that,
Mm,
you have taken quite the journey to get
mm,
to where you are.
yeah.
Background, so you've got this background in Christian theology from
hmm
Harvard. I'm
hmm
gonna keep like I will keep name dropping that from you for you
yeah.
if you won't. You told me that you were a sex educator at one point. Now you're an author and a therapist,
Mm.
and you are married to a rabbi, which is there's so many cool ways to take this conversation.
She is very
But
cool.
with all of that
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
and
yeah.
thinking about, you know, you do have a sort of quote outsider's perspective.
hmm
How do you think that all of these things have helped shaped your view of power, intimacy, and communication in marriage?
Yeah, sure. No, thank you. So, I was thinking about this and realizing that, right, so like I'll put it this way. I really started out in philosophy. That was what I did in undergrad. Um, I very weirdly, I got two different bachelor's degrees. They were concurrent, very odd, like a double degree program, and they were both in philosophy. One was philosophy and one was Jewish philosophy. So I spent a long time just very much being a brain. And that worked out pretty well. The journey that I took in terms of going from sort of religious education to health education to therapist, I realized that what it's actually tracking with was, I think, my journey of like becoming an emotionally, I don't know what word doesn't sound pretentious, emotionally mature, emotionally intelligent, like emotionally in tune male. This whole time that I was a brain, I also believed that I was a very good boyfriend. And there was a point where I had to look back at myself and my actions. So I was like, you know what? Not as great as um, starting to recognize the power that I had in my, relationships. I'm a straight male, so these are all with women. And I was like, all right, I can speak my truth and they speak theirs, and like we're cool. And it took a really long time for me to recognize that I was not really listening well enough. And then if I wanted to feel connected, I was gonna have to sort of slow myself down and become a full person with feelings and with a body, right? To be sort of a whole spirit. So, along that whole journey, that's how I end up going from philosophy to health to therapy, right? Very early on in my like life, my mother said, "You know what? You probably should be a therapist." And I laughed at her so hard. I'm like, why would I want to work with people one at a time? Why would I want to work with people's emotions? Then, it sounds awful. And yeah, it took me a really long time to get to the place where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be able to be like a full human and hopefully do my best to help other people do that as well.
I feel that. I graduated with my undergrad in psychology, and I was like,
Mhm.
listening to people talk about the same problem every time I see them for 6 months with them not actually changing anything sounds terrible. I don't think I
Well,
want to do
sure.
that.
I mean, therapists feel that way also, right? We definitely want people to go from here to there,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
takes a lot of patience, certainly.
Yes. I am more of the action. I will give you a to-do list. Go
Hmm.
forth
Hmm.
and do sort of personality.
Sure.
So you wrote a book. What is it? What's the book? And what's
Can I,
the it's
can I wave it at the screen?
yes, please.
So, seeing the forest and the trees, mapping your inner world for greater clarity and satisfaction in life.
Okay, so this is communication, like helping communication in marriage is part of it, right?
Yeah. So it's divided
And
into six sections. This is all just things that I've been saying to clients for the last 10 years. So I talk about language, limitation, emotions, time, therapy. I actually have a giant section about how to do therapy well as a client, and then a big section on relationships. I think the section is healthy relationships require sharing power and reality, something like that.
yes. And so a lot of my followers are going to be immediately uncomfortable with that specific chapter because
Aw.
they have been conditioned to believe that the husband is the head of the household and he gets
Mhm.
the final say. And if
Mhm.
you're unfamiliar, that's called complementarian theology.
Thank you.
Can you tell us why sharing power is so important for healthy communication and a healthy marriage?
Sure, gladly. Um, how do I like say this? So weirdly enough, I'm actually going to go really philosophical with this. So a book that really changed my life, and I want to be clear, it's impossible to read. I cannot read it. So really, lectures on this book changed my life. Was Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit. He's not a good writer. I don't recommend the book. I do recommend lectures on the book. And he talks about the way in which people go from basically how people become like human, how people become more and more self-aware. And he has this one section that's relatively famous called the master slave dialectic, in which he's talking about the way in which, with a sort of master slave relationship, the master gets to be like the will, and they are just will. They have desire, and the desire gets done because the slave is the body. Um, and of course, that's a pretty bad situation for the slave. And that section usually ends with the slave, risking their life in order to gain full humanity. What I really love, the insight that I love, especially in here, is that the master in this situation also doesn't have full humanity because they are only half a person. They're only will. Like they're not the body part of this. So I think it's my way of saying that in a complementarian relationship in which there's this top-down element, the person who's the one down doesn't get to enjoy the humanity of having power, and the person who's the one up doesn't get to enjoy the humanity of like getting to be sort of like the follow, right? It kind of like it's not
Yeah.
is that I don't know. I don't know if I'm like fully
No, that
getting that.
no, it's so good. It makes so much sense. So that actually like reminds me of a video that I was watching
Mm,
today from one of my mutuals, Abby Eckel.
okay.
I released an episode with her a couple
Mm,
of, well, by the time this comes out, it'll be a couple of weeks ago. But she had said that she realized that one of the reasons that men struggle in marriages
mm,
is because they perceive requests
mm,
as their autonomy being threatened.
yeah.
And it reminds me so much of that because if they're if one spouse is so focused on their own autonomy
Yeah.
to the exclusion
Yeah.
of their spouse's autonomy,
Yeah.
you're it's the same sort of thing there.
We just
And
don't,
it's
it's not a real relationship. It's not,
right.
it's one person is a person, the other person is in ultimately an object, right? They get to have a
Yes.
will, but if they're ultimately their will has to be subservient, then they don't get to be a full person. And again, in a just the way
Yeah.
that patriarchy, obviously hurts women, but it really hurts men, right? Men don't
Yes.
get to have
Yes.
vulnerability, and vulnerability is a pretty big part of being human. So if you have to be powerful all the time and you can't have emotions because they are soft, except for anger, that's a nice hard emotion, hooray.
Yeah.
Um,
Who's gonna
Holy
tell
crap,
them?
I mean, it's terrible for men's health to be caught in patriarchy like this.
Yes. Oh, this sort of dynamic harms both men and women,
Yeah.
obviously. But as from your work as a therapist,
Mhm.
have you noticed a difference in outcomes for couples who take a more complementarian view versus a more egalitarian view of marriage and relationships?
It's a good question. I'll name that. So I mostly work with individuals. My couples work is something that's really just starting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, think of what I find in sort of non-egalitarian relationships is because of this sort of rigid roles, um, they just have fewer sort of moves, right? When they're communicating, right? If you're not allowed to assert power or you're not allowed to assert vulnerability, you're gonna have a really hard time in therapy, right? Really, in therapy, you should have some power. I have a whole bit about how, like, in the therapy room, both the therapist and the client need to be experts. Right? So if you're afraid to assert power, then your therapist can kind of do whatever they feel like, and that's how you end up with like therapy harm. And similarly, right, if the man or whoever is like the one up person, um, isn't allowed to like admit anything, right? So much about couples therapy, what I find when it's going wrong is when each person is trying to score points off the other. And you
Mm-hmm.
don't sort of win couples therapy by winning the argument against your spouse. People go so much further when they concede points, especially because usually if one person concedes a point, it really inspires their partner to do the same, right? One person
Mm-hmm.
sort of blinked, right? They said, okay, you know what? I guess here's what I'm contributing, and that's an issue. And then the other one is sort of grateful that that person made the first move, and they go, like, thank you. I guess here's what I do. So we just get
Mm-hmm.
so much further without this defensiveness. And I think there's a defensiveness built in to an unequal power dynamic in a relationship.
I have so many questions right now, but I don't have words to articulate
Okay.
what they are.
Okay.
Um,
Take this where you will.
yeah. Oh man, like
But I realize I have a much
yeah.
more concrete example I can give.
Yes,
Um,
please.
so there's a couple that I saw recently. I worked with the man first, and then I met with both of them together. And the guy, I mean, I feel bad for him, and I've been sort of schooling him, and we have a good relationship, so he lets me do that. But he has said so many times, and it drives me nuts. He said, "Men only care about sex, and women only care about emotions."
Oh man,
Right,
this
and
is
I'm
this is like the what so this is like one of the taglines of complementarian marriages though, is we see the same rhetoric. We see the same
oh,
scripts over and over.
it's so
Men only care about,
painful.
or I in order for me to engage with my wife's emotions, I need sex first so that I
Oh,
can feel emotionally connected,
it's
right?
so
These are
painful.
the same scripts that we see over and over.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that you have some good update to like
I mean, I mostly just tell, I mean, I say I'm a male and I have, also, usually he's yelling this. And I say, you are emotional right now. You've told me about a lot of, in the situations you've been in which you have emotions. And then I tell him as well, and he's got sort of a small sample size. I say, I know people, they're women, they like sex. They have emotions and sex, and I know men who have,
yes.
and he says, okay. And it's hard to like, it doesn't stick. So I say it a lot. And I mean, it's gotten to the point where when he says it, he's like, oh, okay, I know. Like he knows I'm gonna to jump on it. Um, but yeah, you have emotions, dude.
Well, okay, and so one of the other big sort of so we're gonna if we're gonna talk about scripts and
Yeah,
and things that we see over and over again with complementarian marriages,
yeah.
another one is this sort of protector provider
Hmm.
thing
Yeah,
that men feel that, well, I'm the protector and provider,
right,
so
right.
I have, my responsibility is to go to work, and
Hmm.
your responsibility in honestly, usually in my comment section, it's followed up with, well, my responsibility is to go to work, and her responsibility is make sure I'm taken care of at home, in and out of the bedroom.
Right,
And so that's another one of the scripts that we see
right.
over and over again with a complementarian marriage.
Yeah,
How with is that protector provider trope?
right.
Do you have a response for that?
Um, it just sounds so confining. It just sounds amazingly confining. Like so I'll speak about my own relationship. To me, I think when I say sort of sharing power, a lot of times with me and my partner, what I mean is that we sort of discuss like who takes point on different things. Um, you and I have spoken about ADD. She is the partner with ADD. I'm the one who doesn't. And so there's a lot of
What's it
like,
like to have a functioning brain?
um, well, it's the issue is then being partnered with somebody who, weirdly enough, I don't want to get too far into it. I've got sort of my
Yeah,
own neurodivergence. It just isn't ADD. So I got my, we're
yeah,
a fun dynamic.
yeah.
Um, but so because of sort of my like what I'm good at, what I can sort of do naturally, there's a lot of household things that I'm the one who does them. And I don't do them because she's in power. I just do them because I'm better and it's gonna go faster, right? Like if I do those things, then we have more time together. And to be clear, like it's been interesting. We're doing like a project right now in which I'm doing all of these sort of like bit by bit pieces, and she's doing sort of large scale parts. And she loves that stuff, right? And
Mhm.
we are going about this in terms of what our strengths and weaknesses are, right? Like to be able to be like, well, being male, therefore I have to be good at these things. Lord, like I don't feel like it. Why should I be made to do the thing? Like, why would gender be the reason I have to do the thing that I'd rather not do? Like I just don't I don't it just seems annoying.
One of my specialties is saying things in absurd ways to
Cool.
make people go, "Oh yeah." And so one of the things that I say, well, especially in relation, like in this sort of realm, is a penis is not an antenna that gives you better reception to hear the Holy Spirit.
That's a fun one.
And it's the same idea. Like a
Yeah.
penis does not come pre-built with
No,
whatever, project
no,
manager, right? Like that's not it's
no.
not factory installed with the
Right.
penis.
No.
And
Yeah. Sometimes there are projects where I take lead, and sometimes there are ones where she takes lead. Like we don't.
right.
It seems so freaking confining to do otherwise.
Well, and one of the things that I see pop up a lot because part of what I do is I'm also on the leadership team for a ministry for mothers.
Cool.
And one of the things that I see pop up a lot is parenting issues and
Mm-hmm.
or healthcare issues.
Yeah.
And so this mom will come in and
Mm-hmm.
she will say, I have been doing all of this research on this medical issue for our child,
Mm-hmm.
blah, blah, blah. But my husband won't let me make the doctor's appointment. My husband won't let me, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, okay, well, how much research has he done?
Right.
None.
Right.
And then inevitably somebody's going to pop up and say, well, he is the head of the household. You have to do what he says.
That's
And
not
that
merit
doesn't
based.
it doesn't make sense to me
No.
because if I don't know about fishing,
Right.
why am I going to
Yep.
go fishing and pick up equipment and say, yes, you should throw the handle end in the water and hold on to the string because
Right.
I do, right, but
Right.
my
It's not your
husband
thing.
could be but if my husband like goes fishing and he knows that's dumb, why would I not
Right.
wait, like what about it would make sense that I would not say, oh, you actually know
Right.
I should
So,
probably listen to you.
right. People in, so this is a word I don't use that much, but I feel like it's a thing that shows up a lot in like American rhetoric, which is the word meritocracy. And
Mm,
to me,
yes.
right, meritocracy, which it's problematic in its own whatever ways, but to me, it's an answer to status as being the source of power, right? The person who is good at the thing should be doing the thing. The
Yes.
status doesn't give you skills. Like, I
Right.
have more testosterone than she does. That impacts a number of things about strength and various types of processing. But besides that, like I'm just a person. She's a person. This is not like,
Right.
yeah.
And I think I well, and just on a theological like Christian belief sort of side,
Mhm.
I think it really devalues who the humanity like you
Yeah.
said it devalues the humanity, but
Right.
also it's ignoring the fact that your
Mhm.
spouse was created uniquely to be an image bearer of Christ. And
Mhm.
when you
Mhm.
are trying to force yourself into these
Yeah.
modern American gender roles that are
Mhm.
not biblical, these are not referenced in the Bible. That's a whole other episode.
Yeah.
But when you're like, you are ignoring the individual that God designed each of you to be. So
Mhm.
there's
Yeah.
my theological contribution to
Yeah.
this.
I
Um,
can add to that if you like.
yes, please.
So something I really like is this is like second chapter of Bereshit, that's Genesis for the non-Hebrew speakers. When Chava, Eve, is created, this line, I love it so much that she was created to be an Ezer Kenegdo, right?
Yes.
And here's what I love about it so much. So Ezer means help, and it's like, oh, okay, she's the help. The Kenegdo part is the best part because
Yes.
it directly translates as helper against. And the way I would like to talk about that is like being a foil, right? This is somebody who is going to challenge me, and I'm going to become a better person, and I'm going to challenge her, and she's going to become a better person, right? If it only goes one way, then I don't get to improve. Like I want to have a counterpart, and that should be based on here's an other. They get to see me from the outside. They get to tell me who I am, vice versa. Like, yeah.
And that when you take the proper definite proper
We are so
definition.
worked up. Go
I have
on.
so many I have so many thoughts and my mouth can only say
I
one word at
know.
a
No,
time.
I'm yelling too.
Okay, so when you have a proper definition of Ezer Kenegdo, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is it is not helpmeet.
Yeah.
Helpmeet
Help me
is
is
a
weird.
bad translation
It's a weird
of that
translation.
phrase. It's
Yeah.
not accurate. But when
Yeah.
you have a proper translation of
Right.
Ezer Kenegdo, it
Yeah.
lines up with other scripture
Yeah.
because other scripture says that we are to be as iron sharpening iron for
Yeah.
other believers.
Yeah.
And that doesn't stop just because you got married.
Yeah.
There is no
Right.
caveat to the verse that we are to be as iron sharpening iron to other believers. So
Mm.
when you
Yeah.
have the definition of Ezer Kenegdo, of that
Mhm.
foil, that
Mhm.
I push him, he pushes me, we become sharper
Yep.
as iron sharpening iron. Now you are in line
Oh
with
yeah.
scripture.
I mean, it's so the amount of enrichment I would lose if my partner couldn't tell me things that are outside of my perspective. Like, right? Like if it only went one way, man, I would just be like underdeveloped. I just wouldn't get to like really grow and thrive. I would be stuck in this like no one can tell me unless I guess a guy, right? My male friends get to call me out, my female partner, etc., don't get to like
But this is
it's a
exactly, this
waste.
goes, yes. And this goes back to exactly everything that, see, it's all connected. I am the crazy man with the cork board and the string and the push pins.
Uh-huh.
Okay. It's all connected because this goes back to exactly what we were talking about at the top of
Mm,
the episode,
mm,
why it's important to not just be in an echo chamber. Because
yep.
if you are in a complementarian marriage,
Mm,
you are likely surrounding yourself with
right.
other complementarian
Yeah,
marriages.
sure.
And so are you going to have any other male friends who are more emotionally developed than you, who are
Mm,
pushing you to mature
mm,
into a better person? Or
yeah,
are you just putting yourself in that echo chamber
yeah,
in similar marriages?
yeah, yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
connected.
It's where would you like to
Okay.
take this?
One of the big arguments from complementarians
Mm.
is that they will say that at some point you're going to need a tiebreaker in your marriage, and
Oh,
God gave that power to men.
yeah.
And we've been married over 22, 23. Is it 23? I don't, it's
Mm.
22 or 23 years. I don't honestly know right now, and math is hard. We've
Hmm.
never had a situation where we needed a tiebreaker.
Hmm.
But I would like to, I hear that's a
Mm.
thing. I don't know, but what's your response to that?
Um, so I'll respond on like sort of a biblical level first. And so again, right, so we can drop the name Harvard, but an important part of recognizing it is that it is largely a very liberal theological institution. And a big part of what that means is that they're going to read the Bible in a like a historical source critical context. So I sort of apologize to your listeners where this might be like heretical. And, again, I'm an outsider. Don't let me tell you things. Um, so in the epistles, right, which are all sort of authored by Paul, they are, well, not all, there's some later stuff that it doesn't claim to be authored by Paul. There are a number that are known as like the pseudo-Pauline epistles. Yeah, I think Timothy is one of them. I think Ephesians might be one of them. Maybe Colossians. Um,
Yes, Colossians. Yep.
for what it's worth, and you can feel to keep this in, I hear Christians mispronounce the names of characters in the Old Testament all the time. Uh,
Oh,
like there is no character named Ahasuerus. That's Ahasuerus. Or Jael, that would be Yael. Anyhow,
man,
it's
you just
fine.
called
Look,
me out so bad
you're reading it in English.
because
Like
she's my favorite. Yes, yes,
she's
I am.
awesome.
Oh my gosh, you mean
Yeah.
we are not reading it in the original
Yeah.
language?
Yeah. All right. So anyhow,
Who
so
knew?
I'll right. So right, if we sort of go from the Gospels to the Pauline epistles to the pseudo-Pauline ones, you see this sort of descent into patriarchy, right? The lines about, hey, women, like be subservient, right? Like women, don't talk too much. We're not going to see those coming out of Jesus's mouth. And we're not going to really see that much out of Paul either. Um, I forgot how this started. Oh, I know, the tiebreaker. Right.
Breakers.
So this sort of notion that God gave power to men, you got to cherry pick the Bible to find that part. Um, I was talking with I have a this is an exciting thing for me. I have a client who's quite religiously Christian, and we get along smashingly, and I get to like play theology with her, which is great. And I'm gonna pause again, man. I'm like not fully remembering where I was. Um,
Tiebreakers.
Tiebreakers,
Playing.
yeah, I know. Oh, I know.
Uh.
Wait,
Okay.
so I was teaching her the word multivocality, right? Multiple voices. And because she was trying to come to this sense of like, what exactly does God want and how do I figure it out? And how come if the Bible says this thing and then it says this thing, how am I supposed to figure out what the true one is? And I said, yeah, the Bible is a multivocal set of documents. Um, what I often like to say, and your listeners can feel free to correct me, it does seem odd if you want there to be a single truth to have your Bible start with the same story told four different ways. Like that's just curious. Right? So we're not going to take a single verse and say this one is the truth because there are other verses in there. If you get non-egal verses and egal verses, then okay, there's a conflict here. And good. Let's have the conflict because that's much better than this one is the truth. No, our Bible says a bunch of things. Um, in my, I'm not religious, but I am Jewish and I've got a literacy in it. What we love, what we find sacred is the argument, far more so than the answer, right? To debate about it is our favorite thing. There's this fantastic line in the Talmud. I'll just say it in English, which is these and these are the words of the living God. And the idea is these and these are different things, right? There doesn't have to be, God wants this thing. It's, you know what? God wants us to sort of sort things out. And there are obviously things that are out of bounds entirely. But, there's a pluralism that is good and healthy. So, sorry, tiebreaker.
Yes.
um, yeah, I don't see the Bible giving sort of supremacy to God to men. I see the Bible, the New Testament, giving supremacy to Jesus. There's definitely
But
that.
if they have, okay, but this goes back to what I said. They've
Right.
got a penis, and that's the external antenna that makes them hear better, apparently.
I
So,
I don't even know. I mean, I just
pra-
like I get that they're
okay, so practically speaking, as a therapist,
yeah.
have you do you think that practically speaking,
Uh, uh,
this works for real couples where they
mm,
need a tiebreaker? They just
right.
they're so locked into this conflict that they
I,
can't, someone's got to have the tiebreaker.
I will say that it simplifies things. And I'll say as well, right, some part of sharing power can mean in any given thing, one person is on top and the other person is the follow. So there are some times where, me and my partner have sort of in advance said, you know what, I'm taking lead on this. And that means that if I'm taking lead on it, I get to be the tiebreaker. But that's circumstantial, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean I'm the ultimate constant, I'm the only tiebreaker that there gets to be. So it's good. It's really, I mean, um, in the kitchen. So I do a lot of cooking. But for what it's worth, my favorite thing to do is be the sous chef. Because I love like knife work. I'm very good and very efficient. She's not. She's much better with flavor, which is important for a head chef. And it's really nice occasionally to be in the role of just taking direction. And yet, then we have other situations. Often I feel like maybe like on road trips, or when we're sort of dealing with like, what are we going to do with our family, where I take point. So I get to be the tiebreaker then. And sometimes we're just simply equal. So, look, power play is fun. I think I think your Q&A episode, you talk a little bit maybe about power play. Power play
Yeah.
is great. Don't shy away from it, but play.
I in my head I'm giggling like a seventh grader every
Yeah,
time you're saying like someone's on top. And I'm like,
I know.
yeah, they are.
Yeah, power play is super fun. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a bummer when it's super rigid.
Yeah.
right? If the fine, look, if the bottom enjoys being a bottom, cool, go with it. But the idea that it was ordained, that's I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
I fully, we don't kink shame. We fully support whoever wants to be the bottom here.
Yeah,
Um,
like, but whoever wants to. And there are people who are
right.
switches.
Yeah, exactly. And so, well, and okay, for my sheltered listeners, a switch, we are talking about power play in the bedroom. If you're a little lost with this section
With a
of the
dom
episode,
sub.
we're
Yeah.
talking about dominant and submissive power play in the bedroom. And a switch is someone who likes to be dominant sometimes and submissive other times.
Yeah.
And I total side note, but I think that there's a lot to be learned from individuals who practice kink as far as
Oh,
communication and consent,
yes. You have
because
to be
they
good at it.
are masters at those who
Yeah.
practice kink in healthy ways are
Yeah.
masters of communication and consent.
Yeah. That's
um
yeah. Go
yeah,
on.
and you brought up an interesting point that I want to touch on. I think that for some women who like to advocate in favor of complementarian marriages,
Mhm.
I really believe that part of the appeal is the lack of responsibility, that they don't have
Mm.
to.
Those are fighting words right there. I'm
I
not gonna
know.
fully endure. I can like engage that a little bit, but I'm leaving you out hanging with that one.
Well, you're just gonna leave me out here to dry. Thanks.
I mean,
Um,
but for what it's worth, you know way more
I
of them than
don't
I
think
do.
I
You do
well,
know
okay,
them and I
so
don't, so I'll give
yeah,
you
so
that.
no,
So,
I don't think that's every woman who
yeah,
is in
sure.
favor
That's
of.
fair,
I'm
fair.
not saying that it's every woman.
Right.
I think I
Yeah.
have seen the comments from women.
Yeah.
And I think there is a certain subset
Yeah.
that it's the if I just defer to whatever he says, then I
Yeah.
don't have to be the one
Yeah.
responsible.
For,
And because I've seen them say, well, you know, one day we're going to have to stand before God and, you know, he's going to have to answer for the decisions. I don't want that responsibility.
I'm gonna relate to them for a moment. And I say this to
I
the
mean, I like honestly,
yeah.
like, girl, I get it,
Yeah. So
but
I have a supervisor. She's fantastic. We get along very well. We are friends. And I very often will go to her saying, "Hey, I want to make you like I want to get your like decision, make a call on this." And
mm,
often it's because just I want her wisdom, but I
yeah,
am definitely doing it for cover. I'm definitely doing it so if it goes south, I ask some. And I actually once had a big opportunity. They wanted me to be the director of a counseling center. And I was like, I don't want to have to answer for, like, I just want to have to answer for the health of this client right now. So yeah, no, I get it. I mean, look, I have power by being a therapist, but I sure do love passing on responsibility every now and then.
yeah.
It's chill.
Yeah. So I don't think I'm going I don't know if I will turn that particular clip into one of the social media clips or not.
Yeah.
Okay, but okay, we touched on the bedroom a little bit, and I do want to make sure that we hit on this. Sheila Ray Gregoire did a study that shows that complementarian marriages have lower sexual satisfaction rates
Mm,
than egalitarian marriages. And just
yeah.
to give you guys a little bit of the statistics, this study, it was a matched pair study of couples. So both the husband and wife responded to the study.
Mm,
So for women, the study showed that if she believes that her opinions are not equal in the marriage,
yeah.
she is 7.93 times more likely to say that she is dissatisfied with the amount of closeness she feels with her spouse during sex. She
Sure.
is 5.3 times more likely to be dissatisfied with her sex life. She
Sure.
is 3.48 times more likely to feel sexually inadequate. And
Sure.
she is 2.72 times more likely to report that she is frequently not aroused during sex.
Jeez.
So, all of these statistics are coming from her book, The Marriage You Want. And all of that, just as a side note, is obviously a massive contribution to the orgasm gap that we have in the country, where Men are orgasming over 90% of the time. Women are orgasming less than 50% of the time during a
Mm-hmm.
sexual encounter with their spouses. So,
Yeah.
why do you think that power play
Oh.
in a marriage
Mm.
outside of the bedroom
Mm.
has such a huge impact on sexual satisfaction rates?
Wait, let's not call it play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're
Power
not
play
playing.
in the bedroom
Right.
is
Yeah,
we're a
that's
fan
the fun
of.
part. Right, right. Yeah, let's just say
Right.
sort of rigid power dynamic.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's a better
yeah.
phrase.
So, I mean, here's what comes to mind first. Um, if we if two people are having some sexual fun, ideally they are both getting to enjoy themselves. And you know who's an expert on what my partner likes? Not me. I mean, I become so, I learn, and then I do, I find out what's good. But even then, let's recognize, right, that at any given moment, a thing is nice, or it's getting better, or no longer it's good. Um, the other person, and or me in the case, right, the person is the current expert on what is enjoyable right now. So if you don't get to speak up about if you like something or not, right? If you're worried that your man is going to feel emasculated if you tell him what to do, yeah, that's a real um this is a real obnoxious statement. You were talking about your statistics with the orgasm gap, and my thought was like, I guess we're winning. But like that's a freaking problem. That's not, I don't want to be the only one that wins. It's sex. It's right, like it's not a non what's it called? A zero sum game. It's play where everybody should win.
Yes. And I,
So if you don't get to tell me what you like, you're not gonna have as good of a time.
for me, it goes back to this idea that um, a quote I heard one time, and I wish I had written down who I heard it from, but
Yeah.
ADHD didn't do it.
Okay.
Said, your next sexual encounter starts the moment your previous sexual encounter ends.
Okay.
And so
Hmm.
it's everything that it's not, sex doesn't just start when you get to the bed and
Mm-hmm.
penis meets vagina,
Sure.
right? Um, Sex is your brain and everything that is
Yeah.
happening before you ever get to the bedroom, right? Sex is supposed to be the celebration of intimacy that you are celebrating when you get to the bedroom, all of those things. And so if you don't feel like your voice matters in the
Mhm.
day to day,
Yeah.
I can't imagine that you feel very intimate.
No.
It,
Yeah. How can you be
there,
close when you don't get to be a full person?
yeah, 100%. And there's, I mean, this is like a whole episode in itself, but I want your hot take on something that I talked about with Abby Eckel
Yeah.
in the one of the recent episodes I did.
Mhm.
And because she said that you cannot communicate your way to a better marriage. The episode was about domestic labor and mental load.
Yeah.
And she said that
Mhm.
you cannot communicate your way to a better marriage, especially in
Yeah.
those realms,
Right.
because men have been socially conditioned to not value women's work, and
Right.
you can't care about what you don't value,
Yeah.
and you cannot change what
Mm.
you do not care about.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
so thinking about in terms of sharing power in a marriage, if
Mhm.
a wife is realizing like, oh, we don't have my voice does not matter as much, he has to have the final say, he has to be the one in charge,
Right.
like
Right.
how would you respond to this idea that communication might not be the fix?
Ah, communication is essential, but there are these underlying principles that are gonna sort of make or break things, right? If we can communicate, but there's a very like rigid power structure, then it sort of doesn't matter. I feel like that's what you're saying. Like if we
Yeah.
have certain understandings of how we're going to relate to each other in a, we both get to be people kind of way, then communication can get you a lot further.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. So when you shared that quote where my head went first, and you tell me if this is sort of on point or like a side thing. Um, when you say,
My content is all side quests.
okay, okay. When you say women's work, is that a euphemism for domestic work?
Yeah, so
Okay,
domestic labor, because domestic labor is traditionally women's work,
right,
and women's work is traditionally
right,
um, not valued by men
right.
because it is unpaid,
Sure,
and
right,
men, the patri is
right,
it's a whole thing. That
right,
right, the patriarchy teaches us that the only thing valuable is money, and money. If
right.
work does not gain you money, then what value is it, right?
But
So
when I imagine somebody who doesn't care about domestic work, that sounds like a child, right? Like if you
oh,
want, like when I think, okay, a
those
woman
are
will,
fighting words.
I know, so I'll say it a different way, which is probably also fighting words. Um, if you think that living in a home means a woman cleans up after you, that sounds like what you have as a mother, right? Like
Yeah.
that's not if that's if you want a mother and not a partner, like that's cool. I'm not gonna kink shame you. um but I just don't see I just don't see the adulthood in it.
I mean,
Like you clean up
well,
after yourself. It's what an adult does.
to be fair, I mean, just follow that to its logical conclusion.
Mm.
What is wrong with a woman who wants to have sex with her child?
I don't know where we take that.
I mean, but that's what it comes.
Right. Well,
It's
I
all
was
it's
gonna
all connected.
I
It's all connected,
I'm
right?
currently I'm reading Esther Perel's Mating in Captivity.
Yes.
Um,
Everybody
for
should read that.
so for what it's worth, there's actually a lot of it I don't care for. It does not. Me and my partner have been saying there's just so much that doesn't speak to us. And one line, at least that I feel like is relevant here, is the way in which something that can really sort of ruin like sexual vibe is when one person is the other person's caretaker.
Hmm.
And that's sort of what we're just describing, right? Like, if the man has all the power, why is he being like take? Why is he being babied?
And but that's what we see show up in a lot of these sort of marriages where it's all connected, right? Get the cork board. If he's the protector and provider, then
Mhm.
the women's work is undervalued if it's valued at all. He doesn't see that he has a responsibility because his responsibility is, protect, provide.
Yeah,
He's Ken's job is beach. The complementarian's job is protect, provide.
uh,
Um,
yeah,
and her job is house.
yeah,
And then so he's not contributing, and she doesn't feel like she has a voice that she can speak up and say,
yeah.
"Hey, I'm dying under
Mhm,
the weight of house,
mhm,
and I'm not the Wicked Witch of the West."
yeah,
And he gets to just tell her,
right,
"You're not submitting enough."
yeah,
Anytime she brings something up,
yeah. It,
and then we become surprised when she
yeah.
doesn't want to have sex.
It also seems just like it seems like a bad way of having a person. So, again, this is something I've spoken about with clients where, if you're, if you're in a straight relationship and you are a female and you are doing sort of housework and parenting, that's a ton of body work. Your husband comes home, then he wants your body, you're far less interested, right? You're
Yeah.
just a body all day long, and you want the house to stay in order, and you want your kids to be attended to. So your husband in that way ends up coming last. You spent all day putting your body, having your body be used for these other very important things. It just, how can you feel sexy when your body's being sort of overused? And again,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm going to keep doing this just because I sort of like to mix sort of bold and humble. Um, there are people who are listening, and I'm not speaking their truth, and I'm wrong about you. Like you have a truth, you know it better than I know yours. So I'm saying these
Yes.
things in a way that sounds like objective and universal, and I just want to name that that's not. the case. I have very strong opinions. That does not mean that I'm right about you. I'm wrong about you. You know that.
Well, and I think it's important to note that it would be impossible for my podcast to speak to every person in every
Sure,
situation,
sure.
and have it be accurate for every person in every
No,
situation.
totally. But
And
I'm
I
like
think,
talking in a very authoritative way, and I like to
yeah,
back down from that every now and then because
yeah.
still just some
Well,
dude who has a bunch of opinions and is a therapist. Like, you know,
and a lot of education to back it up.
sure, great, fine. There are smart people who are terrible at their job and terrible people and have
I
terrible
mean,
opinions.
valid. That's also not wrong.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So with all of these
Yeah.
things in
Yeah.
mind,
Yeah.
um, complementarian theology really benefits men more than women, because
Yeah. If I
they,
had to choose, I'd rather be the guy.
right.
Yeah.
They get to label everything as the wife. Well, you just need to submit harder,
Mm,
is what it
sure.
boils down to.
Yeah.
So, what motivation would men really have in moving to a more egalitarian sort of relationship?
So I think that getting someone to submit harder is itself just like a real power struggle. I think interestingly enough, in an egal relationship, you'll end up having fewer power struggles because you're not obsessed with dominating. It just seems sort of exhausting to dominate. Um, I
I
think that's a
mean,
piece of it. Let me see
if
if
you
I can
guys
drum up.
really like the power dynamics, you can just move them to the bedroom,
Sure.
also,
Yeah,
as a
right.
side note.
Yeah, let me see if I can drum
That's
up.
an option.
Yeah, let me see if I can drum up like another answer as well. Right, right, right. If it benefits men, then sort of what's in it for them. Um, I mean, you kind of named it. I would rather my partner be a lot happier. It doesn't benefit me when I'm married to the loser of the relationship,
Uh,
right? Like, even especially God, I mean, and again, I'm not speaking for every person. Um, Something that's very important to me, for better or worse, is that my partner have a job that I find fascinating. Um, you know, just I'm gonna find you interesting if the thing that you spend all day doing is interesting. If she was home all day, I can't imagine what she would tell me that would make for good conversation. Like, if my partner gets to be a full human, they're a way better friend. Like, I don't want my friend to be a shadow of me. If this person is my best friend, I want them to not bore me. And again, I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm speaking clearly as someone who's never been in a non-egal relationship. I can imagine myself feeling very bored by the other person because what do they have going on for them?
Well, and I think that speaks to a larger issue of, if the couple has chosen for her to be a stay-at-home parent,
Mm,
then they both need to be prioritizing her opportunities to be a whole person
mm. Sure,
outside of house
that's good.
and kids.
That's very good. Good.
So
Again,
that,
I don't have the imagination for this, so I very much appreciate that.
yeah,
Like, do some,
no,
especially if the women's work is domestic and parenting, that means that I, as the man, am by nature not interested. So good. I'm glad that there are outside projects. That's fair. Again, I do not have a good imagination for this. This is outside of my reality.
yeah, well, and totally valid.
Mhm.
But I think that speaks to the necessity of, if you are the at-home parent, because we had a season where my husband was the at-home parent and I
Mhm.
was the primary breadwinner.
Yeah.
And it takes both adults in that situation to prioritize the at-home parent getting
Mhm.
an opportunity to be a whole person outside of parent, and not
Yeah.
only for their own mental health,
Yeah.
for them to be an interesting
Yeah.
partner.
My mother likes to say this, and we have a very good relationship, which I'm very, very grateful and lucky about. My brother was born, she stayed at home. When I was born, she stayed at home. And as soon as she could, she went back to work. And she says it the same way every time. She says it was so boring. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. If I'm from ages 0 to like 2, I'm sure I'm delightful every now and then, but I bet I'm mostly boring.
It's, I mean, this is, it's all side
We're all
quests.
very verbal
I
people
should, I
when it
should
comes
have,
to
I should have named this podcast Side Quests, because it's all side quests. But
yeah,
I mean, it's a lot of the same thing every day, day in and day out, and
yeah,
that can break a person's brain. And
yeah, yeah,
parenting is holy work, and it's important, and it's imperative. And if you are both choosing for one of you, and it doesn't have to be the wife, to be the primary at-home parent, home
yeah,
with the kids all
yeah,
the time,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it
Getting
is important to note that that those opportunities need to be intentionally cultivated.
yeah,
So,
good.
um, if a couple
Mm,
has listened to this and they've realized, like, oh, we are in a power imbalance in our
mm,
relationship, and
mm,
it's not the delightfully kinky kind,
mm.
and we would like to move towards a healthier
Yeah.
setup, what is the first thing that you would recommend that they would do?
Boy, that's really good. So I can name, I feel like I can start with sort of the abstract answer, but I feel like I owe like a more concrete illustration. The partner who has been sort of playing non-vulnerable, right?
Hmm.
The partner who's had more strength is going to have to develop a comfort being more vulnerable, right? Because the partner is the one down isn't safe to get assertive until they know their partner can handle it. Right. I
Hmm.
mean, the part where, I mean, unlearning subservience is hard to do. I've been working with somebody who's facing that exact thing. And thankfully, right, she's at a spot where her husband is developing the ability to give her the floor, to cede points to her, etc. And so because of that, she's unlearning something from a previous situation, right? She's only safe to do that if he's sort of proven that safety. Now, I think then of course the question is, okay, so how does he do that? Right. Um, and let me see what I've got with how does he do it? What feels like sort of training wheels for vulnerability is he should consider going to therapy, and not because he's insane or needs help, but therapy, the whole point of it is it's designed to be a safe place. And maybe he starts out by having a male therapist, because that's a little easier, right? Admitting things to another guy, maybe, he'll be okay with that. And maybe at some point, if he wants to be really daring, go get a female therapist. Because what's nice there is it's not your wife. It's not, well, if I give up power, then who even am I? Right? What's so fascinating about therapy is there's somebody now who's part of your life who also is totally not in your life, right? And you can try things out. So I will say, right, that therapy itself can be a pretty daunting thing. Um, I have a very large section in my book that is just about how to do therapy. Really, the beginning of writing the entire book was just that I kept having to provide sort of just education to clients about how to use me as a resource as well as possible. And for what it's worth, I think the guy who's used to power will appreciate. I have a chapter called "It's Good to Challenge Your Therapist." So good. Like go admit things to your therapist and let them have some power and be vulnerable. And also like they're not God, right? You don't have to do, you don't sharing power is appropriate everywhere. So it's not, oh, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be the sub. No, you're gonna go and you're gonna learn what it can feel like to be a sub occasionally. So I think that can be a good start. I think if a man can recognize Marvin Gaye says we are all sensitive people, right? So if the guy can like get in touch with that, um, and then I think there's a point where he'll realize, when he's in touch enough with his emotions, he'll start realizing how much his wife doesn't know him because he's had to hide, he hides that from himself. He has to hide that from her, and he's going to feel distant. He's going to feel like, what am I doing in this relationship with this person who doesn't actually know me? So that's a theory. That's a hypothetical way it could go. It sounds beautiful to me.
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
So this book sounds delightful and like it's going to help so many people. Where can people find it?
So, it was just easier to like self-publish than try to sell it to, and
Yes.
I'm very proud of it. I worked with a company that makes it look like damn good, and have like an editor and a copy editor. I'm very, um, the Amazon. You go on Amazon. So if you go on Amazon and search Seeing the Forest and the Trees, and then my name is Matthew Lowe, Lowe. It's the only book that comes up that isn't about ecology. Um, yeah.
Fair. I
Uh,
will also put a link to it in the show notes
cool.
to make it easy for people.
Awesome. Click on that link. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you, so this book took about 10 years of, being a therapist before I was done with it. So hopefully another 10, I will come out with the next book, which is only going to be about communication. But I kind of have to be more of like a master of the subject. So, and it's a big one. So,
I love it. All right. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
um, I'm going to say the same thing anytime I'm asked this question. The original title of the book was going to be "You Don't Get to Be Simple." Um, and
That feels like it fits.
so the editor told me, and he's fair, he said, if people don't know you, that's going to be a super antagonizing title. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. But if you are listening, you are a complicated person. That's a good thing. You have a lot of parts. Some parts you like, some parts you don't, some parts you're iffy on and you're not sure what to do with. Congrats, you're a human. If you sort of own being complicated, you're going to be a lot better at managing all of those parts than if you try to shove some of them down.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, y'all, go have good sex. Here's the truth. Power dynamics shape everything in a marriage, from who does the dishes to who feels safe saying no in the bedroom. God never designed us for one person to hold more power over the other simply by virtue of external genitalia. Egalitarian marriages, where power, responsibility, and voice are shared, consistently produce better outcomes for both partners. If this conversation challenged you, I hope it also gave you hope. You don't have to stay stuck in the same old sort of marriage that just isn't working. You and your spouse can build a marriage of equals rooted in respect, mutuality, and yes, really good sex. As always, thanks for listening and go have good sex. That's it for today's episode. You've been blessed and probably slightly scandalized. Now go journal, go text your man, and most of all, don't keep this to yourself. Share it, review it, slide into my DMs. Then grab a journal, a game, or a coaching spot. And remember, Jesus didn't die for you to have boring sex. So go have good sex already.